Pen and Paper Corner, everybody! Well, today's game is Ironclaw, an anthropomorphic animal game where you choose to create a character based on an animal type.
Excuse me.
This is rather unique because it lets the players come up with their own idea about what sort of animal they'd like to play as, but also a different party role.
Don't ignore me.
And it's really cool too, because I actually got to talk to one of the creators of the game, Norman Rafferty.
Don't pretend you can't see me. You know I am here.
Oh, cripes. It's the elephant in the room, everybody. Okay, what do you want?
You do know you're reviewing a game about being a furry, right?
You know, I was going to be mature about the whole furry issue and not even bring it up and just talk about the game based on its own merits, but I guess you had to come in here and bring everybody's perception about what it means to play an anthro game. I mean, really, it's not a big deal. Everybody else has interests that I don't like. Why can't some people get dressed up in fursuits? Why is this a problem?
Just how
and you know what, the game is really good, so why are we even... Okay, elephant, enough! Okay, folks. Let's address this whole furry issue right here and now, because we kind of have to move beyond that if we're ever going to talk about this game. And of course, addressing the whole furry thing has to come first.
You're some creepy LOL cat, aren't you?
Okay, elephant, you really need to leave. I'll address this whole furry thing, but seriously, go bother the critic, why don't you?
Friggin' LOL cat.
Hey, it's pronounced lolcat, you idiot! God. Okay, folks, the elephant in the room just bested me there. Okay, whatever, let's get on with this. We do need to talk about the furry thing here. Oftentimes, whenever the idea of animals that take on human traits and appearances comes up, people seem to come out of the woodwork to either lambast it or criticize it. But the question is why? For those not in the know, there does exist a movement of people interested in animation, film, and other mediums where humans and animals combine their traits and resemble anthropomorphic humanoids, and sometimes call themselves furries.
Jesus! I'm a furry!
Like any group of people, there are extremists that don't represent the bulk of participants, and for every 10 fans that just want to put on some kitty ears and generally be derpy, you get something like this.
Let's do the fork in the garbage disposal.
You really can pervert pretty much anything, can't you?
Because tonight I want to learn all about the secrets in your garden.
And the internet, of course, has only sped up that process. After all, Rule 34 seems to have engraved itself as one of the commandments of the internet. Bear in mind, while some people might find it sexually stimulating to bang a zeppelin, not everybody does. And on that note too, not everyone can even agree on which zeppelin they'd like to bang in the first place. So why am I bringing all of this up? Well, the reality is, if you were to look at this book cover and saw pictures of anthropomorphic animals and passed it off as being odd or strange, you would be doing yourself the bigger disservice. This game is actually quite good. The reality is, too, is that the elephant was in the room, so we had to talk about it. But now that we have all of that out of the way, let's get this review started. Once again, let's switch things up and start with the content on this game instead of game mechanics, since I'm sure the question on all of your minds is how did they take an anthropomorphic animal game and put it into an RPG format? Well, suffice to say, they did a fantastic job. The first thing you'll realize when you open this book and begin looking at the various animals you can play as is the artwork. The art in this book is fantastic. Not only are there plenty of animals to choose from, but the artwork is both descriptive of the setting as well as the beast you can play as. There's a lot going on in these pictures. I particularly find the artwork for the gray and red fox descriptions genius. The differences between the two animals can be very clearly seen in the artwork, and its juxtaposition is both simple and elegant. Let that be an example for how brilliantly this book is put together. As far as the plot is concerned, the setting of the game is placed on a single continent known as Calabria, and almost the entire latter half of the book is devoted to outlining the countries, various cities, and histories, as well as the political and religious structure of each country. Ironclaw is very thorough, but without becoming overwhelming, and never once does it feel like it's being padded for space. In fact, the entire book is about 350 pages, so you definitely get your money's worth. So you don't end up getting stuck paying $35 on a book that's neither a game nor a book. Don't you look at me like that, Alucard. Get the hell out of here. As someone who has a minor in medieval studies, the game is particularly interesting because Calabria's setting very closely resembles our own actual history. You see, the time period set in Ironclaw can be determined as roughly the early 1600s or so, with gunpowder finally developing into a viable military option, feudalism giving way to the importance of guilds, and the steady rise of the middle class. Ironclaw incorporates this into their system flawlessly, with the player's jobs, species, and reasons for adventuring in the first place. Magic and religion is also worked in very well, and it treats the members of the clergy and various magic orders as scholars and supplicants first, developing the player's story along the way. Like the actual time period, if you were a member of the clergy, you were literate, educated, and were in possession of several books that were worth a lot of money once you were done with your training. Ironclaw mirrors this exact same idea. The religions also vary from nation to nation, representing the adopted state religion held by the nobility and government, but also further adding to the flavor and general feel of the world. Instead of the game having a polytheistic pantheon, most of the governments have adopted a monotheistic religion with the Church of Salome, mirroring its real-life counterpart by introducing to the country that adopts it a more formalized government structure, better and an increased level of literacy, and formalizing the country's culture. Governments of the early Middle Ages, and by governments I mean the king and his nobility, generally converted to Christianity more so out of the advantages I just listed over the preferences to the actual religion. Seriously, I could keep rambling about how awesome the content is, but you really do need to experience it for yourself. It is that good. Ironclaw succeeds in every way possible for content in an RPG. It's varied, but it's concise. It's in-depth without becoming overwhelming. It's engaging and very well written. But most importantly, it's so well designed and so well written that it causes the reader to actually desire more material. You want to learn more about this universe because it's so well put together. It's games like these that I fill up my bookshelves with and become a devoted fan over. Content in this game works. Pure and simple. The story, the art, the history, and the attention to detail all make this game easily worth an A. And you know what? Since this game actually went out of its way to incorporate such a realistic history to its setting, content for Ironclaw instead will get an A+. It truly went above and beyond 100% for material that really didn't expect it to. Well done, Ironclaw. Once more, I'm going to mash up the order of this review and instead go on to character creation next, since if I'm doing my job correctly, you're probably at least partially interested in making a character by now. So on that note, let's take a look. The amount of character variation and customization in this game is fantastic. There's just so much to choose from. Whether you want to be a rabbit almoner, a rat fencer, a lion bodyguard, or my own favorite, a skunk gunsmith/engineer, Ironclaw gives you the way to do it. Okay, so here's how it all works. The first thing you do is choose the species you want to play as. Naturally, each species has its own inherent strengths in terms of skills it's naturally good at, and other random abilities it can do, like being able to swim, being extra strong, or being able to spray sulfur compounds in the eyes of your enemies. These extra abilities are known as gifts, and at character creation you will receive 3 gifts and 3 skills from your species that modify your character. Your gifts can also add dice to a dice pool if you decide to use that skill. You will also choose a career that will give you gifts and skills in addition to the ones you receive as your species modifiers. This seems like a good place as any to discuss the ability scores. In this game, your ability scores not only determine your mental and physical abilities, but also measure how good you are at your career and how in tune you are with your species. At the beginning of the game, you're allowed to allocate a D4, 3 D6s, and 2 D8s to your ability scores. Whichever die you put into your species or career spots will determine how high or how low of a die you will throw if you decide to use one of those skills in your species or career spot. Finally, you're given 11 marks to put into skills with a skill specialty for each and 3 gifts of your choosing. Each mark you put into that skill will upgrade the die you throw when you use that skill, starting at a D4 and even going past a D12. Most of the skills are largely what you'd expect to see, except for the combat skills. If you don't have a career that has a melee or ranged combat skill, it might be safe to go ahead and put a few marks into them.
Is it safe?
Yes, it's safe. It's very safe.
Gifts, on the other hand, represent all sorts of things, including having additional skill specialties, having titles of nobility, or even possessing rare and specialist equipment, like firearms or magic user books and trappings. Most gifts will give you an additional D12 to roll for specific skill checks, but we'll talk about what that means in game mechanics later. Lastly, your character has a motto, which helps identify the character's outlook on life. Not only does it help solidify the character, but it also helps the character earn additional experience by playing into that motto. But again, that will be covered in game mechanics. Making a character for Ironclaw is a lot of fun. Each of the animals you can play as can be tailored into any idea or concept you want. 11 marks and 3 gifts is just about enough where your character doesn't feel underpowered, and the rules do limit you to 3 marks per skill to begin with, so it does limit the amount of min-maxing a player could do, which I personally really like. Everything is quite balanced, which demonstrates that the game was play-tested with few ways to break the game, as it were. Only downside I can see is that there doesn't appear to be that many careers you can choose from. Okay, I'm just kidding. There's more careers near the back of the book, so is there anything I can find wrong with it? Well, not really. Once more, Ironclaw balances variety and depth into character creation so that it's interesting to design both a person and a party role. I even like the idea that you can have any item of cheap or average availability to start the game out with, and that you don't need to roll a number of dice to determine what your starting cash is. It's all very easy to go with. Alright, Ironclaw, you earned the A you get for character creation, but I'm on to you. Somewhere along the line you will start sucking, and when you least expect it, BAM!
That's my style. I like to kick 'em when they're down.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at game mechanics and see if we can find anything wrong with this game. I mean, it's not as if I'm trying to find fault with it or anything, but on that note, let's take a look at game mechanics. The die mechanics for this system are relatively straightforward. If you'd like to accomplish a skill test, you simply roll your dice and see if you can get a 4 or better. The more successes you gain, the better you succeed at the roll. If it's a contested roll against someone else, such as trying to shoot someone, you instead compare your successes against your opponent. In this case, the higher number your success is determines if you win a bout of contention. So, if you were to roll a 6 and a 10, and your opponent rolls a 6 and an 8, you would win the contention. In Ironclaw, the larger your die pool, the more chances you have to succeed. This makes buying additional gifts that help provide another D12 to a roll very attractive, or even just ensuring that your career skills fit into the style of character you'd like to play as. If you roll all 1s in your dice pool, you're considered to have critically failed, but it does mean that your odds of critically failing go down considerably with the more dice you have in your die pool. Also, this game doesn't have hit points like in other games. Instead, it has 5 states of being, and becoming injured does at least scare you temporarily. At its basic level, combat is comparing the number of successes and damage of a weapon, including any other effects the weapon might have, against the defender's ability to absorb damage. The defender of this attack is allowed to roll their body dice, armor dice, and any other gifts they have like strength that might allow them to shake off damage. And if you do manage successes to defend, those successes subtract from the damage done to you. An interesting mechanic too is the overkill idea, where if you manage to score 6 or more points of damage to an enemy, he was killed so powerfully that it actually scares his allies. And because I find this sound effect so amusing, Combat is by far the system's most difficult feature. Gifts can alter combat considerably, and combat can become more difficult the more player abilities you put into it. Eliminating the hit points mechanic found in other games is nice because it adds a sense of realism to combat, but it also expects the players and the game master to know what abilities are being used beforehand, and it can slow things down simply because you're not just comparing two numbers against one another. At its heart, combat and spellcasting is easy, but it can quickly become overwhelming if too many gifts and other finagling is done along the way. But still, the system works. Experience differs too from most other games, but again in a positive way. Each character begins the game with a goal and can get up to 3 goals in their quest log. If you manage to fulfill the goal, the game master awards you with a gift. If you don't like the gift you get, you can sell it back for 5 experience points. New gifts cost 10 experience, and new marks cost 4. I particularly like this because there's no need for complicated experience charts. Each game session usually gets the player between 1 and 3 experience points. You automatically gain 1 experience point, but if you participate in the game's debriefing session, or talking about how the game went and what can be improved, you also get another point. Yes, they did work in post-game discussions into the experience log. As I mentioned earlier, if your character worked within their personal motto, you get a 3rd experience. Most of the games will give you 3 XP or so, which also has the ability of growing all characters, regardless of their build, at the same rate. Again, not at all a bad thing. Ironclaw's game mechanics deviate slightly from other designs, but it works quite well with the setting. While combat can be a bit confusing at times, especially if you're unfamiliar with it, it is a solid design and a refreshing alternative to the hit point system that oftentimes stymies other games. The sheer amount of variation of the gifts available to the players helps them create a better build with their character. Grade-wise, the potentially complicated approach to combat will pull the score down just slightly, but otherwise, game mechanics is very, very good. So an appropriate grade, A-. When I was in 5th grade, I was a huge fan of the Redwall series. So much, in fact, that I actually designed my own Redwall-inspired RPG game. And it was pretty bad, but the point remains, I was still interested in game mastering even then, and Ironclaw would certainly be a good outlet for that. So how does game mastering hold up for this? Running a story would be quite fun for this game. Since the most difficult aspect to learn about Ironclaw is its combat system, which really isn't that bad really, the GM is free to worry more about the content and less about the nuts and bolts of the game. As I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of content to explore, and games could run the gamut from being combat, investigative, or intrigue-oriented. In this regard, the game is not niche, and most people would be able to become a GM fairly easily. You wouldn't expect that at first glance, but I really do think Ironclaw is accessible for most genres of gaming and towards those who would be interested in running a game in the first place. I've already mentioned the major mechanics of the game, so most of what a prospective GM would be doing is creating a story, which the game helps you with quite well. The sample bestiary they give you is very good, and creating on-the-fly bandits, marauders, or pirates is very easy since the book gives you several templates that are easily adaptable to any setting. Since animals in other games like horses are used for transport or war, the game has also some homemade beasts of burden that addresses how animal husbandry would have developed in a world where the animals are the ones in charge, so to speak. The game even boasts its own weights and measures scale, with distance measured by hands and weight measured by stone. All of these things together give the world depth, and if you played this game, you would certainly have a unique gaming experience, and this makes it very easy for the GM to convey. It's very easy to use, and it makes an enjoyable game with everything that it offers, and the A it gets for game mastering, well, it certainly reflects that. Ironclaw is well worth every cent you pay for it, and at an A rating, this game is a must-buy. While writing for this review, I found myself going out of my way to find things that didn't work about it, just so the review wouldn't turn into a love letter to Norman Rafferty. But yes, the game really is that good. Sadly, Ironclaw cannot be picked up at your local gaming store because it isn't carried by the behemoth distributor Diamond, and that is nothing short of criminal. The RPG industry needs games like Ironclaw, And the system is largely limited in scale and scope because Diamond owns what effectively amounts to a monopoly on RPG distribution. If you want this game, you will have to order it from Sanguine's website directly. But once again, it's worth every penny. Ironclaw's publisher is savvy enough to offer 2 softcover versions of its game. One for character creation, and the other for the more content-oriented stuff. These books are cheaper than the other hardcover book, but it's also in black and white, and since the art is a huge draw for me, I actually highly recommend the hardcover over the softcover. So what's in store for us next time? Well, for next time, I'd like to tackle a giant mechanical behemoth of a series that is in desperate need of a retrospective review. That's right. Next time I'm going to start looking at the various incarnations of the Battletech system, starting with the very earliest stuff and on to the most recent. If big stompy robots are kind of your thing, then you won't want to miss this next show.